The kids. For those of you who are joining us this week, we are in the middle of this sermon series entitled I Choose. And it's kind of built on this idea that while we make thousands of choices every day, we make choices about what clothes to wear, we make choices about what light switch to turn on first, what food to eat. We make all sorts of choices. There are a few fundamental, foundational choices that have lasting implications into kind of our life and who we become. So we started the first week and we talked about I choose purpose over popularity. I choose to live for God's approval, to bring glory and honor to God rather than the approval of men and women and friends. I choose purpose over popularity. Last week we talked about this idea that I choose, what did we talk about last week? I forget. I choose to surrender to God. I choose to let God be in control. I choose to trust that He knows what He's doing. And I don't have to control every little thing in my life. I choose surrender over control. And today, as you may have guessed from the video, we're going to talk a little bit about urgency and rush and hurry and people who think that everything in life is urgent. And today our topic is I choose important over urgent. I choose the things that really matter over the busyness of the day to day. In order to illustrate this, I'm going to invite Andrew up, and we're going to do a little skit for you together this morning. For the purpose of our skit, I'm going to play the mature, rational, reasonable adult. And Andrew's going to be, well, Andrew. And what we're hoping to illustrate for you this morning with a little bit of fun is kind of the two sides of our brain. There's one side of our brain that recognizes there are things in life that really matter, that we should be doing, that we value, that we want to make important in our life. And then there's this other side of our brain that says, I don't have time for any of that long-term, big picture garbage. There's stuff that needs done, and it needs done now, and I have to get it done, or nobody else is going to do it. And there's this constant struggle in our life in a variety of areas between doing what's important and doing what is urgent in the moment. And so, for example, this is what it might look like if you are a parent of young children. All right, so easy enough today. I got two important things on the list. I got to do devotions with the kids tonight, and I'm going to take my wife out on a date tonight. That one-on-one time, super important. So with the kids, with the wife, that's all I've got to do today. It's good.
Ring, ring, ring.
What are you doing?
I'm being a phone.
Why?
Because isn't that one of those things that's always seems so urgent? When your phone rings, you have to pick it up immediately.
Yeah, I guess.
Ring, ring.
Hello? No, I am not interested in a 30-day sample of hair regrowth cream.
But he could use it.
Whatever. Never mind. Goodbye. What a waste of time. I'm going to go see my kids now, okay?
These are for you.
What's this?
Mail, mostly junk, some bills, but either way, you do need to take care of it now. If you don't, those bills are going to start giving you late fees, and those just add up quickly.
All right, I guess. It'll just take a minute, and then I'll get to the kids.
And that's exactly how it happens, isn't it? Just 1 minute, just 5 minutes. And they seem so important, but they're not. And these urgent things can start to consume our lives. And at the end of the day, this 5 minute has turned into 24 hours. And now I don't have time for the important. Are you done yet?
Yes, I'm done. Can I go now?
Absolutely, but just so you know, there's still a lot that you need to do.
A lot of... Like what?
I'm glad you asked. You haven't mowed the grass all week. I mean, can we talk about the dishes that are up to the ceiling? You do have 3 missed voicemails, 22 missed notifications, as well as Netflix just put out 10 new episodes of your favorite show.
All right, so all that stuff needs done, but none of that's, like, important. None of that is nearly as important as my kids, as seeing my wife. None of that really matters.
Maybe, but do you really want your neighbors going around talking about how long your grass is?
I guess not.
And you don't want to be the only one in the office that hasn't seen the last episode of Master Chef, now do you?
Wait a minute, you think Master Chef is my Netflix show?
There's not a Master Eating show now, is there?
I'll get the grass mowed. I'll return those phone calls. I guess I can see the kids for just a couple minutes tonight. And then I should still have enough time for date night. So short devotion and then date night.
Splish, splash, splosh.
What are you supposed to be now?
I'm a leaking toilet.
That would explain the smell.
Either way, you gonna fix me or not?
Oh, I'm gonna fix you.
And as fun as and silly as that might be, that's any relationship, right? It's not just a father, it's not just a husband. Guys, it's your friendships. It's your children go through the same stuff. This hits you every day, this argument of what's important and what's right here and what's in my face. And I get it, the things need to be done. And it's not simple. But a relationship, guys, if you want to be in a relationship with somebody, it's shared experience. It's spending time with somebody. It's easy. Listen, it's easy for me to do stuff for people. It's hard for me to sit down and just be with people. I know I'm not the only one. But you know what happens after I've done 800 things and I just keep doing them? One morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to realize that relationship doesn't exist anymore. It's now a partnership. And as much as I've had some great bosses over the years, those bosses are not my friends. They are not, my family. I don't want a partnership with those people. And what kills me is I know it's not just in my relationships with other people. I do it with God all the time. And I've had this conversation more than I'd care to count. No, God, I'm sorry. I can't read my Bible today. I can't pray. I can't do my devotion because don't you understand I have to get ready for VBS? Don't you understand that there's 15 people that need my help and you tell me to love people? Don't you get it, God? I have things that I need to do. There's nothing wrong with doing VBS, guys. We just had a great week of VBS. It was fantastic. There's nothing wrong with loving people and helping people. The problem comes when I'm motivated by my to-do list. I don't do it because I love God, I do it because it needs done. And it adds up. And just like with other people, at some point, I no longer have a relationship. I guess the good news for me is I'm not alone. Josh is actually going to come up here in just a minute, and he's going to tell you guys about these two sisters that shared the same struggle that I did. My to-do list or being with Jesus.
We're going to be in Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10, while you turn there, I want you to think about the fact that Andrew just said he doesn't like his bosses and how that's going to go over for him. It is good for me. I've known Andrew since he was a kid. And as we were talking through what we were going to do this morning and wanting him to be a part of this is a conversation we've had 1,000 times with each other through the years and how hard this struggle is. And I think there's a reason why this story of Mary and Martha in Luke chapter 10 appears, because it reminds me so much of me sometimes. And my guess is as we walk through it, it will remind you an awful lot of you too. So this story that takes place in Luke chapter 10 is about two sisters. Martha invites Jesus into her home. Jesus is on a journey. He's on his way towards Jerusalem. He stops in Bethany, and we meet Mary and Martha. We find out from the Gospel of John that they have a brother too, but he doesn't appear in the story here in Luke. This is what it says, Luke chapter 10. We're going to start reading in verse 38. It says, while they were traveling, he entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who also sat at the Lord's feet and was listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks, and she came up and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to give me a hand. And the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but one thing is necessary, and Mary has made the right choice, and it will not be taken away from her. I want to read verse 40 to you again. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. Martha has invited the Son of God into her home. Martha has invited Jesus himself into her home to sit in her living room. And her sister Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus, and Martha can't stop working. Martha is distracted by her many tasks. I don't know if you remember years ago when I was a kid, there was this big push for everybody to have a life verse. Maybe you have a life verse. This idea that you'd pick one verse of the Bible to summarize all that you were about. Some of you should pick Luke chapter 10, verse 40 as your life verse. And she was distracted by many things. Because that describes how you go through life. You have this running, nonstop list of things that need to be accomplished in your head. The dishes need washed, the grass needs mowed, the laundry needs folded, the kids got to get to school, I have 3 cards to send, I need to have dinner with this person, I got 2 phone calls to make, the bills need paid, and it just never ends. And if somehow, by some miracle, it were to all be accomplished, let's say you have the most loving spouse in the world, and he says, you know what, my wife is way too stressed out, and I'm going to hire someone to clean the house. And I'm going to hire someone to do the laundry. And I'm going to pay all the bills for her. And I'm going to have the grass mowed when she comes home. And I'm going to do everything that's on her list. Guess what? There would just be more things on the list. All of a sudden the windows would need cleaned. All of a sudden the carpets would need scrubbed. All of a sudden you'd have another dinner date or another card to send or another phone call. It would never end. And I say that as someone who understands. Usually the first piece of advice I give to someone who is brand new in ministry, the very first thing I will tell them is you must learn to be okay with unfinished work because your job will never be over. There's always someone else you should visit. There's always another phone call you should make. There's always another book you could read for your sermon. There's always another study you could do for Sunday. It's never done. There's always something else you could do. And you have to learn to be okay with leaving the office knowing there's things still there. Because the list is always long. So I speak this as someone who gets it. Some of us live this life, and our life verse is, Martha was distracted by her many things. And we are just bouncing from one urgency to the next urgency, hoping to make it through. And so Martha has invited Jesus into her house. And what that means, in case you don't quite get it, is she really probably invited a couple of dozen people into her house. At the very least, Jesus is there with his 12 disciples. There's at least 13 smelly, dirty men who've been hiking the roads of Palestine now sitting in her living room. Most likely, there are also some of the women and other people. She just did a spontaneous dinner party for 20 folks. And some of you, if you want to know if you have a Martha personality, it's the fact that your heart just skipped a little. And your brain already started to go, listen, if 20 people showed up to my house, what would I do? And you've already started to make this fantasy list in your head. Well, let's see, I've got some hamburger patties in the freezer I could thaw out, but the dishes really need done before anybody shows up, and I really should vacuum the living room because I didn't vacuum yesterday. And you're already making plans for the dinner party that's not happening because that's just how your brain works. Because you are distracted by your many things. And so Martha invites them in and throws this impromptu dinner party for somewhere between a dozen and 20 folks. And there are things that need done. If you've ever hosted a family dinner, it doesn't just take care of itself. And so she's in the kitchen and she's slicing the vegetables and she's roasting not the pork loin because they're Jewish, but some sort of meat that they're going to eat. And she's out back and she's got a pot of water on for the coffee and she's sweeping the dirt floors in her house, I guess. I don't know. Excuse me. But she has this list, and if in her mind, and you have said this to yourself, in her mind she's thinking, well, somebody's got to do this or it won't get done. And if we're going to eat dinner tonight, somebody's got to cook it, somebody's got to prepare it. I'm going to go do this. And at some point in the process, as she's washing her 12th pan, as she is peeling the last of the potatoes, she looks in and sees her sister sitting on the living room floor doing absolutely nothing. Have you had this experience in your house where you're on like item 9 of your checklist, and whether it's your kid or your spouse or whoever has the football game on, and all you can think are, don't they see how busy I am? Why don't they get up and help me? That's Martha's attitude. Martha comes into the living room with anger and purpose in her voice. Jesus, would you tell my sister to come help me? In essence, what she wants is for Jesus to look at Mary and say, Mary, stop sitting there and go do something. And instead, Jesus looks at Martha and says, stop doing stuff and come sit here. And Martha doesn't know what to do with that. Jesus says only one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen what is better. And I love the way Jesus words that, because nothing Martha was doing is wrong. Trust me, there's nothing wrong with having a clean house. There's nothing wrong with cooking a good dinner, okay? Somebody gets to eat the good dinner. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with having things to accomplish. There's nothing wrong with hard work. Do you know how I know this? You know the story that comes right before this in Luke chapter 10? Jesus tells the parable of the Good Samaritan. And in the Good Samaritan, Jesus is rebuking these religious leaders who say they have faith, but don't ever do anything to help people. And the story he tells, the hero of the story, is this Samaritan who is a mixed race outcast in the Jewish community, but he is the hero because he's the one who actually does something. So Jesus can't be teaching that what we should all do is become monks and move to the desert and sit and meditate all day, because he just got done telling a story where this guy who picks up a guy, takes care of his wounds, hauls him into town, pays for his bills, feeds him. He's the hero of the story. So it's not that Martha has stuff to do that is the problem. It's that she is distracted by her many things. It is that she is so concerned with these trivial, urgent things that seem like they have to be done that the Son of God is sitting in her living room and she misses him. She doesn't even recognize the opportunity she has. Some of you have had a Thanksgiving dinner at your house where you never even got to sit and talk to your family. You were so busy roasting turkey and making pies and washing dishes and setting out silverware that you had your entire family in your house and you never got to sit and visit with them because you were distracted by your many things. That is Martha. The Savior of the world is sitting in her front room and she's too busy chopping vegetables to notice. You see, the problem isn't that we have stuff to do. We all have stuff to do, and it needs to be done. The problem is when these little urgent things creep up on us and they keep us from doing what is really important. There's a guy by the name of Seth Godin who's written several books on leadership and management and marketing, a well-respected author. And he talks a lot about what he calls the tyranny of the urgent. That we are slaves to whatever thing needs done right now, even though most of it isn't important. Most of it doesn't matter in the long run, but it seems important because it has to be done right now, and we become slaves to the urgent. And in one of his books, he has this little quote that just has always meant so much. He says, the best leaders don't do more. They do more of what really matters. Because what happens in a leadership position is you see all of these things that need done. All of this teaching that needs done and this training that needs done and these bills that need paid and these decisions that need made, and you just do more and more and more and more. And most of us are wired to take our worth. The more I do, the more important I must be. The more I accomplish, the more valuable I am. Let me do, let me do, let me do, let me do. And those people are never really successful at anything. They're busy. They're stressed. They don't sleep very well at night. They lose their hair at a young age. But the best leaders, they figure out what really matters. This is the best way for me to spend my time. I'm going to do more of that. And it's not just leaders. The best coaches, listen, I played for some football coaches who thought the answer to us being a bad team was that if we just practiced more than every other team, we'd have these 4-hour practices at night. We'd get up in the morning and we'd watch film for an hour, and we'd have meetings in the afternoon. We practiced more than anybody else, and we still got our tails kicked. We still weren't any good. Now, part of that's because we weren't very talented, but that's a whole other thing. But part of it is, as someone who's now been on the other side as a coach, you don't need 4-hour practices to get better. You need to figure out the things that actually work. What drills do I run that actually make us better? What practices can I do that actually make us better? Let me figure out what's best and do more of that. Not just do more stuff. Let me do more of what's best. Same thing as a parent. There are some parents who think that the more they do, if I just do everything with my kids, we're in this program and we're in that program and we're playing this sport and we're in the Boy Scouts and there are parents who have kids who have like full-time jobs, they have 50 hours a week of extracurricular activities. They think if we just do more, everything will be perfect. But the best parents, they figure out what really matters, what's really going to help their kids. And I'm going to do more of that. It can be true of churches. There are churches whose philosophy of ministry is the shotgun scatter approach. Let me just throw every program I can at the wall and hope something works. Let me fill the church calendar to the brim. Let me put as many things on there as I can and hope something is effective. But the healthiest churches, the best ones, they figure out what works, what's really good, and they do more of what matters. And so the key here, as you're taking a lesson from Mary and Martha, is to figure out what's really important. What's really important, and spend your time and energy doing what's important. Spend your time and energy doing what matters the most. And so hypothetically, here's what that looks like in my job. Okay, I spent 16 years in youth ministry working with preachers who would be stressing out on Friday night because they hadn't done their sermon yet. And all week they were stressed about that. And I used to sit and think, that is ridiculous. Like preaching your sermon that's like one of the most important things you have to do. Like that's one of those things right up there at the top of like every Sunday morning you're going to get up and you have to have something to say. Now it may not be very good, but you have to have something to say. All right? And so one of the principles, if you call me at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, I can tell you exactly what my sermon is. I'm done. I start working on my Sundays, or my sermon on Monday morning. I'm done by Tuesday afternoon because it's important. And I know that those urgent things are going to pop up. People are going to pop in and want to talk. A microphone's going to break and I'm going to need to take care of it. A teacher's going to cancel and I'm going to have to write an extra lesson. Somebody's going to be in the hospital and those things are all necessary, and so I need to do those things. So I have to put my most important thing first, or I get to Friday at 6 and I haven't started yet and I'm freaking out. And so I put what's important first, so I make sure it gets done. As a parent, it might look like, you know what the single most important thing you can do as a parent? As those of you raising kids, statistically speaking, and there are thousands of hours of research to prove this, the most important thing you can do for your kids is you can eat dinner around the table at least 4 times a week. It is the single most important thing you can do for your kids. It's more important than what school they go to, more important than what extracurricular activities they're in, more important than, honestly, from a functional standpoint, more important than whether or not they're here for Awana on Wednesday nights, more important than what conversations you have with them, more important than whether or not you read to them. The single number one indicator of a functional, mature adult who's not depressed, doesn't have suicidal thoughts, not addicted to drugs, graduates high school, the number one indicator is how often do you eat dinner as a family? Because that time of conversation and connectivity cannot be replaced. And so if that's important, that has to go on the calendar first. I have to get up and get my work done so I can be home at a decent time so we can eat dinner together. I have to not schedule meetings at 6 o'clock at night every night of the week because I need to eat dinner with my family. And that has to go on the calendar first, and everything else has to filter around it because that's more important than whatever else might be in the way. And if that's important, it goes on the schedule first. Or maybe it's your faith. Every couple of weeks, I'll get a list, and I'll make a series of phone calls, text messages, whatever. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. There'll be someone who hasn't been here for a month or 6 weeks. I'll send them a message, or, hey, we missed you, just want to make sure everything's okay. Some of you have gotten some of those phone calls. Guilty, bad people. You know what the number one answer I get from people is? We've just been so busy. We've just been so busy. Work's crazy, football's crazy, baseball's crazy. We've just been so busy. And I'm just going to tell you that if this is important to you, if you believe it's important to be around other believers and to worship and to hear the Word of God preached, if you believe it's important to have your kids connected to other kids as they grow up, if you believe that this is important, then it needs to be first. And I get the struggle. Listen, I got a kid who plays sports too. We have those conversations all the time. There's this tournament on Sunday. What are we going to do? We got family commitments over here. What are we going to do? We're going to go to church on Saturday night so he can still play? Are we going to skip church? How are we going to handle? I get it. I understand. I'm not preaching. I'm in it. I get what you're going through. I understand the busyness of life. In fact, I learned a lesson when I was probably 19, 20 years old. I used to do this thing where my friends or my family would call up and they'd say, hey, when can we get together? And I would say, well, things will slow down after Christmas and then we'll get together. You know what comes after Christmas? January, which means youth group starts up and the big Valentine's dinner is right around the corner and our spring retreat's a couple weeks after that. I don't really have time in January. Hey, after we get through the spring retreat in March, then things will slow down and we'll get together. You know what comes after March? Easter. Good Friday service, sunrise service, special Easter service. Oh, you know what? In May, when Easter's over, you know what comes in May? Church camp. I'm a month out from my week at church camp. I got time to get together with people when I'm getting ready for church camp. And then there's the mission trip. And then there's vacation Bible school. And then there's fall kickoff programs. And then there's Bible study on Wednesday. If I wait until my life is no longer busy to see my parents, I will never see my parents. If I wait until my life is no longer busy to get in shape, I will never get in shape. If I wait until my life is no longer busy to have a time at a church and be connected with other believers, I'll never be connected with other believers because my life will never stop being busy unless I make a choice to put it first. And so I get your struggle. I get what it is to be busy. I get what it is to have all of these things. But the people who follow Jesus well, they figure out what matters. And they do that first. And if that means I have to say no to other things, if that means there are opportunities I miss out on, if that means somebody else has to pick up the slack, then that's fine. I'm going to do what's important first, and then I'll do the other stuff. And it's not just coming to church. It's why so many of us don't read our Bible. We have the best of intentions. And then we get up and there's phone messages and we watch the news and that's depressing. And then we got to go to work and we're at work all day and then we come home and we're with the kids and then it's like 10 o'clock at night and I'm tired and I want to go to bed and I got time. It's not that we don't want to. It's that we don't put it first. And so it doesn't happen. It's why so many of us don't pray like we should. It's why so many of us struggle to give. Because we pay all of our bills and we do all the things we want to do, and then if there's some left at the end, then I'll give. Guess what? If that's your philosophy, there's never any left at the end. And the most important choice you can make is to say, this is what's important. My faith matters to me. More than being successful at my job, more than being liked by this person, more than having grass that's cut to the right length. My faith matters to me, and I'm going to feed it first. I'm going to follow Jesus first, and then I'll fit the rest of the stuff around that. See, here's the thing about urgency and importance. Important things are never urgent until it's too late. It is important that you change the oil in your car. That's important. If you don't know that, I'm telling you, you should change the oil in your car. But your oil change will never be urgent until it's too late. Until the damage is already done and there's smoke coming out of your engine and you're like, what's that grinding sound? At that point, it's too late. It is important to take care of your teeth. If you don't know that, public service announcement, you should brush your teeth regularly. It's good for your health. Brushing your teeth will never be urgent until it's too late. And all of a sudden your pain is like through the roof and you're going, oh my goodness, what is that? Why did someone stick a dagger in my mouth? And at that point you're going to see a dentist and having work done because it's too late. The damage has already taken place. Spending time with your kids will never be urgent until the day it's too late. And the damage has already been done. And the relationship has already been broken. That doesn't mean you can't fix it, but you will never feel the urgency of it until that relationship's gone. And your faith will never feel urgent until you are so far down the road that you wonder if it's too late. Now, the good news about our Savior is that as long as you are drawing breath and he has not yet come back, it's not too late. But there will be a day when it's too late, when the choice has been made and the judgments have been decreed. Don't wait until it's urgent. Don't wait until there's a crisis. Don't wait until you have no way out. Choose what is important over what seems so urgent at the moment. We're going to sing an invitation song entitled, "You Are My All in All." It's a simple proclamation that Jesus is what's really important, that our relationship with him, our commitment to him is what really matters in life. If you'd like to make that decision for the first time, we'd invite you to do that. For the rest of us, let it be a time of prayer and commitment to what really matters in life. Why don't you stand as we sing together, "You Are My All in All."